At a time when everyone thought things would calm down for the United States, look at this. Trump just said he had talked for a few seconds with Lula. And the media twisted everything. And the fact was that the President of the United States was inviting Ignacio to come talk to him, to show the world that all those interviews he was giving, that the President of the United States didn't want to negotiate, didn't want to talk to him, that he tried and all, and nothing worked out. And the press kept hammering on this since last week. Now, new sanctions are already on the radar of the United States. More new ministers. We're talking about the Magnitsky sanctions. Now, there are two more members of the Supreme Federal Court, two more figures. One is sarcastic and the other is basically the one who calls the shots in the Supreme Court, right? The Dean Gilmar Mendez just announced. So, hold on. For you to understand that everything we've been through here, that many other influences that you've seen on many other channels, let's put it this way. Even better, saying it was just a move by Trump, that there was nothing to it, that Trump is now Lula's buddy, just like the media is trying to say, because now it has been revealed here. We're going to show all these facts that are happening right now. But hit that like button. Come be part of our family. Look here, this right now. Early in the morning, the Trump administration considers using the Magnitsky Act against other Supreme Federal Court justices. And Gilmar is already maneuvering an anti-embargo law over there, as if that would solve anything, right? Among them, Gilmar Mendez and Flavio Dino. It's right here. The United States just released this statement here. Paulo Capelli included it in his article. Take a look. The United States is considering new sanctions against Supreme Court ministers, which will be inevitable. The American government is already discussing applying the Global Magnitsky Act against more Supreme Court ministers. At least 2 judges are on the list of possible new sanctions being considered by the Trump administration. The assessment of interlocutors who work with the American government and have direct access to the authorities responsible for the sanctions is that precedents already set open the door for measures against ministers who publicly support Alexandre de Moraes. But according to Global, look how they deceive people. According to other members of the press, Lula had already made Trump fall in love with him. Isn't that what you saw? It was in many places. Among the names that reached the American government's table as suggestions are Gilmar and Flavio Dino. Both defended Moraes and criticized United States measures against the investigation's rapporteur for the attempted coup. Look at that. From one day to the next, how things change. Interlocutors believe that the 2 ministers may fall under the interpretation of the United States Treasury Secretary Scott Bessar, who acts in support of what he considers a human rights violation committed by Moraes. As revealed by Paulo Capelli's column from Metropolis, the United States, in addition to sanctioning Moraes' wife, also revoked the visas of 7 members of the Brazilian government. Among them, Jorge Messias, Minister of the Superior Court, and Benedito Gonçalves. All were sanctioned with the loss of their visas. Minister Luis Roberto Barroso told journalists at a breakfast that he is waiting for Lula to meet with the Trump administration. And he emphasized that the court can respond to the sanctions either politically or even legally. Political then? It's clear that they are acting politically. The latest United States offensive is sanctioning Moraes' wife, lawyer Viviane Barsi. They had put the website online, right, for Viviane Barsi. It was up and running nicely there. The American government received the complaint, went there, and took the minister's wife's website offline. Then after that, they put the site back up on another server again, and once again it was taken down by cold fire. Not even email. The email they used there in the office, they'll be able to use because it was also taken down. The Magnitsky Act, as many experts have said here, doesn't hit the sanctioned person all at once. It gradually takes away the person's ability to operate. There's no way today for you not to use American services, even if it's just through a cell phone. Oh, but yes, Apple and Samsung both use Samsung. After all, the Play Store belongs to an American company, and little by little, they're taking all of that away.
That's a fact. They can't deny it.
So my friends, what we see here, as you can see, Gilmar's reaction says that authorities are debating an anti-embargo law to avoid sanctions. That can't be how things work, right? Let's check it out. Gilmar Mendes stated today that the three branches, executive, legislative, and judiciary, are discussing the creation of an anti-embargo law to protect Brazilian authorities and institutions from international sanctions. In other words, they're making mistakes, and instead of correcting them, they're going to double down. Now, many lawmakers who get involved in this debate also run the risk of being sanctioned.
According to Gilmar, the discussion was motivated by recent sanctions from the United States against Brazil.
It's not against Brazil, it's against them. They're the ones causing all this trouble in our country,
Such as revoking visas for officials and enforcing strict laws against Alexandre de Moraes.
Don't they know they can make whatever law they want here? Is it up to the United States to decide who can enter their country, for example?
In Europe, there are several discussions about this, considering the embargoes that will be applied to Cuba and Iran.
Guys, we've managed to reach the same level as Cuba and Iran. Doesn't this already show the terrible situation we're in? Brazil is being sanctioned in the same way as dictatorships.
They were sanctioned.
And even countries that openly support terrorism, like Iran, right? And other countries over there in the Middle East.
Cuba, Venezuela. That's it. I think that's already a sign, right?
Here's the information. In Europe, there are discussions about this, considering all these embargoes.
Since this was recently enforced, including visa revocations and actions by authorities, they mention it here. Gilmar points out, however, that he believes the most appropriate place for this discussion is the National Congress. The minister has been a strong critic of American sanctions and a defender of Minister Alexandre de Moraes. In mid-September, in the first panel of the Supreme Federal Court, he concluded the trial of the crucial core that they had already been waiting for.
The fastest trial in the history of Brazil, which was precisely to convict Bolsonaro.
Their issue is Bolsonaro.
That's the fact. Days later, the United States expanded sanctions on Brazil, revoked visas of Lula's ministers and Moraes' aides, and imposed Magnitsky sanctions on Alexandre's wife. The minister said, however, that he is proud of how the Supreme Court handled the whole situation, the way they wanted, obviously. No authority has managed to counter all of this. Fuchs, a trial of a president in a first panel without opening it up to the other justices, the full court as a whole.
Because it was obvious.
4 ministers allied with Lula: Dino, Zanin, Carmen Lucia, and Moraes himself. Fuchs disagreed with everything,
showing that what was happening there was wrong. It was the longest vote in history.
It lasted over 14 hours, with very well-founded content.
Just with that, my friends, we're already doing very well.
Their intention, right? Gilmar also stated today that he still has the highest expectations regarding Edson Fachin.
According to the minister, a calm and peaceful administration is expected.
The court is largely united in defending institutions and democracy, correct? Around them. It's very sad for us to see everything that's happening.
Claims about the National Congress's attention are partly urban legend.
Sometimes a disagreement or another is louder than it is effective. And this is the 27th interview of Gilmar Mendes. And there's a lot more heavy fire coming.
The Trump administration has only just begun. Many say they should impose sanctions immediately and negotiate later. That's not how it works, is it, friends? I think that in the case of the United States government, they have a better assessment of how to do things, right? Many times, right, people have that anxiety. It has to be done at a certain time. But we're talking about the American government. Claudia Acker, a major Brazilian influencer who lives in the United States, posted it. The Bartzi de Moraes law firm's website is down again. Like I said, Moraes and Vivian never seem to get any peace. There are thousands of Magnitsky Act monitors in Brazil and abroad. Those sanctioned by the Magnitsky Act don't have PayPal, Stripe, Venmo, all blocked, Visa, MasterCard, and Amex credit cards canceled, digital banks, dollar transfers frozen. YouTube channels removed or demonetized, Google AdSense banned from advertising, Google Cloud, Gmail, Drive suspended and linked, Facebook and Instagram with pages, profiles, and ads blocked, Twitter, which is now X, TikTok, no possibility of monetization. Apple Store and Google Play remove apps from sanctioned firms. Office, that Microsoft 365 service, Azure, iCloud, Twitch, Patreon, and other platforms without revenue transfer. Marketplaces like Amazon, eBay, Axis close their stores, and several other digital services here. Just in the digital part, a few considerations here. That sanctioned individuals cannot be working and operating with those companies. So the loss is very big, my friends. Not to mention, for example, someone who has an office like a law firm. If a company or a client wants to hire you, they might not be able to. That's one of the possible sanctions. So this is no joke. The United States created this mechanism precisely so they wouldn't be at the mercy of many try to commit the worst atrocities. But this situation here with Gilmar Mendes shows just how worried they are, because we were watching, right? This whole narrative from the media that nothing is going to happen, that they are the highest authority, that they can do whatever they want since they're here in Brazil. But the law doesn't refer to Brazil, it refers to the United States of America, right? The companies and the American service can't be used. Here in Brazil, they can do whatever they want. As long as Brazilian companies don't have any ties with the United States, it's fine, it's allowed. But from the moment a company starts a dialogue and needs some company from the United States to establish itself, then things get complicated. Then there's no whining, it's that simple. And this information is coming in now, especially regarding what's clear in the headline here. New sanctions are inevitable. New sanctions from the Supreme Court minister will be inevitable. At a time when they were saying that Lula was going to be able to solve everything over there in the United States of America, weren't they saying that? And the banks are the ones who are going to suffer. A lot more. Why? Here, Brazilian banks and the response to the United States about Magnitsky sanctions is only due at the beginning of November, a step taken by the United States Treasury Department so that Banco do Brasil, Itaú, Bradesco, BTG, and Santander respond on how they are applying the sanctions provided for in the Magnitsky Act. Yes, it's due now in November. If the banks don't provide a solution, they will be sanctioned. No sugarcoating. Basically right here, look. As the video says here, Trump is preparing measures against Banco do Brasil for having provided an ILO card to Moraes. Banco do Brasil will likely be the first to be sanctioned, in my view, given what's happening behind the scenes.
Important investigation. Donald Trump's administration is reportedly preparing new measures against Brazil. What information is that? Loreville?
In Washington, my sources had the impression that sanctions against Banco do Brasil are imminent. Of course, Trump could change his mind. It's very much in his hands. Naturally, it would be a decision by the United States Treasury. In the past, other banks have been fined by the United States for violating rules related to sanctioned countries. So the French Banque Nationale de Paris Paribas received the largest fine, which was $9 billion, and other banks also faced this kind of fine. In addition, a tariff is being prepared. As we said, it was applied to India. It would also apply to Brazil, which imported $12.5 billion.
Also, I often say people with more power complain less. The United States hasn't even begun yet. What we see, it hasn't started. All the retaliation. It's simple. They just need to read the letter that the President of the United States had sent here. It's that simple. Total, broad, and complete amnesty, unrestricted, because it's a huge injustice. They're keeping Bolsonaro in prison, and it's not for the coup case since there are appeals for that. There are still several things. It's because of that situation where he was, according to them, arranging things with Eduardo Bolsonaro. He wasn't included in the Procuraduría General de la República's case, yet he's still imprisoned and held incommunicado, without being able to use social media. It's absurd, because they see that these appeals are getting closer. If they release Bolsonaro now only to arrest him again later, it will look really bad. Meanwhile, they keep him in prison. Even if this measure is totally illegal, even if it's completely absurd, they keep an innocent man in prison, locked up. It's outrageous. That's why the United States isn't giving that answer today, just now, okay? Let's keep following, because more developments in this case will come to light. Share this video on WhatsApp, on Telegram, on Facebook, hit the like button, help share it here on the platform, and come be part of our family. By subscribing here to the channel, I'll be back soon with more news and information here on the País y Filos channel.